Hi, I'm John. This is my show, A Sports Reckoning. So, I'm going to make this video because those idiots over at Sports Card Radio, they're so dense and so fucking stupid, they don't understand that they actually have a platform, right? They worked for it. They've done their work, and they've been in the card community. They've started like their Sports Card Radio. They've built it. So they do have a platform of which they earned. They worked for it. I'm not saying that they fucking just popped up one day and now they got a platform. No, they worked for it. They've been around. They know a lot of the people in the environment stuff. So like, I give them credit that they've earned their platform, right? And like, they're kind of street motherfuckers. Like, okay, now like I think Ryan is much more street, and so there's parts of this video that I think Ryan will understand. But his transvestite brother, Colin, the little pretty boy, you know, he's a little bit too clean and shit, right? So, like, I'm not going to assume that Colin is taking acid or fucking eating mushrooms and trip balls and shit, right? I'm not going to assume that Colin's done cocaine and methamphetamine. But I'll assume that fucking Ryan's done all that shit. I crack myself up and shit. It's right. Part of being fucking smarter than everybody else and not having a lot of friends is that I have to entertain myself and shit, right? So I'm sorry, I crack myself up and shit, right? But I gotta entertain myself because y'all motherfucking idiots. Okay, so this is what I'm saying. It's like, look at Sports Card Radio. You guys have a platform. You don't understand. It's like you guys are so stupid that you don't understand that your platform gives you access to breaking real fucking news stories. Like real fucking news stories that can break big. Like, just for instance, look at right now what's going on with the Bud Light, right? Everybody's fucking making videos about the Bud Light. You're talking about a super huge, like when things go viral, big issues, right? It's like Sports Card Radio, you could break one of those stories. And it's right here. It's the environment and the time of what's going on. It's right now. It's right here. Because also that Dylan Mulvaney also did a commercial for Nike, right? So right now, Nike's at play. They're in play. So Dylan Mulvaney also did that commercial for Nike, but all the people that are the Bud Light people, they don't really, the Nike thing, it's just so stupid that it's not like, it's harder to make a big deal about that, right? But Nike's there. People want to get them. And Nike has that movie out right now about Nike Air. So I'm saying, it's like, dude, this is the perfect environment for which you to fucking bring up this story and break it. Break it on Sports Card Radio. A real fucking story. You guys need to get this fucking out there. This is a real, I think it's real. But even if it's not real, then just talk about it and create a fucking story that everybody will talk about and everybody will say, this is real enough that it's like, everybody should be asking if this should happen. But it's not in our culture right now. This is not, and that's what I'm saying, Sports Card Radio, is this story of what I'm saying to you right now, it's not in our culture. You guys have the power to put it into the culture. I don't have the power. That's why I ask for your assistance and shit, right? And so, here, I'll show you exactly what I mean and on the bigger scales of everything. So, this is the mother of Len Bias. And actually, I think I've watched some of this, and I think she became a doctor. Now, one of these things I haven't checked, I haven't done all the research. I don't know if she's even still alive. But let's just assume she's alive, but I don't know. But I'll tell you what my thing is, that I want Nike to be sued by the Len Bias family and Hank Gather's family, and I want Nike's ownership to transfer to them. I don't want Nike, they should own Nike because Nike murdered their children because to support Michael Jordan and the world domination through the Air Michael Jordan shoes and shit, right? And that's what they did. This needs to be put out into public, and we can prove it. I'm going to show you fucking Ryan. Like I said, I'm going to talk to Ryan because you're going to have a better understanding than your brother Colin probably won't understand the drug culture and shit, to understand that when you see how Len Bias died, that's not natural. He was murdered. He was murdered and shit, right? So this is Len Bias' mother's, just to give you guys a little bit of sympathy for the pain of the reality of what she fucking had to deal with.
When he went to New York I never saw him again until he was on the table at Leland Hospital dead. It's a bitter cup, and I tell anyone, if you can think what it feels like to lose a child, it's 100 times worse than you think.
All right, why don't you stand up for her? Do something for her. And that's what I'm saying. I can't blame her for doing the proper investigation, because look what she just said. You think it's bad to lose a child? You know, it's 100 times worse. So she's dealing with a serious fucking issue. You know, and at the time when it's happening and all these professionals are telling you that this is what happened, and how do you fight against that? What do you do? Right? It's horrible. It's like, dude, stand up for fucking some mothers out there. Stand up for Americans and shit. I don't understand how you people are not standing up for these people. You know? Because, look at, just a simple thing of reality. And remember, Len Bias had signed to Reebok. Len Bias signed to Reebok the next day he was dead. I mean, that's just a fact. There is no... So, Len Bias was not signed to Nike. He went to Reebok. And Reebok was looking for a player to build their shoe brand in the same fashion of which Nike was doing with Michael Jordan. Reebok was looking for a player to do that with their company. And they had just signed Len Bias. And if you remember, anybody that was around at that time, Reebok was big for a while. When they came up with the pump shoes, and like the D Brown did the slam dunk with the pump shoes and shit, right? So that company was in that market. They were there. And all that would have required for Reebok to become the big company instead of Nike was for a player sponsored by their company to knock Michael Jordan out of the playoffs. Remember, Len Bias is going to the Boston Celtics. Everything about it. There was no way in the world that Nike was going to leave that to chance. Once they had their player and they had made their commitment to Michael Jordan, Michael R. Jordan, this is our guy, right? And I'm not knocking Michael Jordan at all. Michael Jordan, there's no doubt. I've seen great players. I've watched his whole career. I mean, there's no doubt about it. Michael Jordan is no doubt, hands down, one of the greatest basketball players to ever live and shit, right? But it's like, when you talk about like dominant players, like just right off the bat, the most dominant player I ever saw by far was the Shaquille O'Neal on the Lakers, and I have to specify like on the Lakers, and you can even go after that and say maybe on the Miami Heat. But the Orlando Magic, Shaq kind of sucked. He kind of sucked when he was on the Orlando Magic because Shaquille could not make a basket unless he slam dunked it. He could not make a layup. It was so funny and shit. He could not make a basket unless he dunked it. But he still would have a high field goal percentage and shit because he was dunking everything, dunking on everybody. He could do that and shit, right? But if he just would, like, any shot that was not a dunk, he missed. He missed it all. So, and then he didn't fix that till, like, he went to the Lakers and probably started working with Kareem and shit, got a little hook and shit, got a little touch to his shot, and then he became the most dominant player. So, like, when people want to talk about greatest players and all, I tell you all, shut the fuck up. You don't know what you're talking about whatsoever. It's not even a question. Shaquille O'Neal was the most dominant player that I've ever fucking seen. That he was the only unstoppable force that could not be stopped. You could not stop that. It was like Kareem's skyhook. Now, the skyhook was unstoppable, but that didn't make him the most dominant player and shit, right? He wasn't like Shaq, who monster size and could jump fucking out the fucking building and shit, right? And was aggressive. He had some skills. Like, Shaq was so far above and beyond anybody else. So, like, people want to, I mean, LeBron James is not even in the conversation. It's like, dude, Steph Curry is way better. Dude, Kawhi Leonard is a far better basketball player than LeBron James. Now, he's had some injuries and stuff, and he hasn't had... But see, there's the thing about, like, LeBron James. LeBron James, when you want to talk about LeBron James, if you say LeBron James has had one of the best NBA careers of all time, I come out and say, yes, you are absolutely right. LeBron James did have one of the best careers of all times. But when you start thinking that validates him as being the best basketball player, I instantly say, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. You have no idea of what you're fucking talking about. LeBron James was never, ever the best player in his generation, so he's not even in the conversation when we talk about greatest players of all time. But you know who could have been in that conversation? Len Bias and Hank Gathers. Those were real basketball players. Both of them were both better than LeBron James. And that's what I'm trying to stress with that point, is that when people are calling LeBron James, when you put him up on the Mount Rushmore and shit and call him like greatest, dude, Len Bias and Hank Gathers were both better than LeBron James. That's the quality of fucking caliber of athlete of which was coming to oppose Michael Jordan's greatness. And with that level of greatness and talent out there, Michael Jordan would never have won the 6 titles in which he won. And if he doesn't win, then he's not, we don't instantly call him the GOAT. He's not the greatest of all time, because now maybe we're talking about Len Bias. And if Len Bias is the GOAT, we're not talking about Nike shoes the same way. Maybe Jordan gets hurt and then it's all over. And who's the guy that's dominating? Len Bias or Hank Gathers, because both of those guys were as gifted physically and as talented basketball as Michael Jordan was, but they were both bigger and stronger. Both of them. And they were just like Jordan, aggressive. These were monsters. These were killers, man. These were fucking extremely gifted athletes. And what happens to the two guys, the two studs that are coming up right after Jordan and right after Nike has got control over Jordan? What happens to the two studs that are coming? Boom, they both die suspiciously of heart attacks instantly, some kind of instant heart failure, and they're dead. They both died the same way. These you're talking about the most superior physically gifted athletes on the world, and then all of a sudden, boom, dead. So they killed Len Bias as soon as he went to the Celtics and signed that fucking deal to fucking Reebok. It was over. He's done. Hank Gathers, they couldn't allow him to go to the draft and have to, they knew, this is what we did with Len Bias, so now we got Hank Gathers, and they're like, everybody knew, if you knew what's going on with Hank Gathers, you know, Hank Gathers was going number 1, he was the best, there was no doubt about it, Hank Gathers was the best player out there. So you can't allow Hank Gathers to go to the draft, and you can't do it that because you don't want all the publicity, so what do you do with him? You kill him in a game and have him die on the court. Right? Boom. And then they just say, oh, well, he's an athlete. He had an enlarged heart. Oh, that's it. It's over and shit, right? So, now, let's talk about the actual moment of where Len Bias is murdered by Nike. Len Bias was murdered by Nike. Hank Gathers was murdered by Nike. And that's what I'm saying, Sports Card Radio, if you can't even start this rumor to get it going out into society, that's what I'm saying, you're so stupid to not understand the importance of getting this rumor out into society. Getting people who have the context to the people that are in the room with Len Bias. This is what we want. We want real investigations done. We want to know that if the people that are in the room with Len Bias at that time, we want their bank accounts checked. We want to see if did they have any fucking inflection of some instant cash that we don't know where came right around that time. Did they end up working at Nike? Do they have direct connections to Nike? This is what we want to know. That's how a real investigation is done. Somehow they got to, I would say there's the guy Long there, the guy that they say jumped on him and does CPR. That's probably the guy who killed him. That would be my prime candidate suspect number 1 is that guy. He should have been investigated as fucking a murderer. That's what should have happened. Now, we're going to be setting it up here. They're going to be talking about coming up on the morning of where Len Bias is dead. Here we go.
He shared a suite with fellow teammates Terry Long, Phil Nevin, Jeff Baxter, David Gregg, and Keith Gatlin.
Okay, so you hear all of those names. Those are all your suspects and shit, right? We know the Long is in the room at the time it's going to say his name, but what about the other people? Who are the other people? Were they in the room? Like, who was there? What do we actually know about what actually took place in that room, and who are those people, and who are they associated with? That's where the investigation needs to go, but that kind of investigation had never been done because the doctors are saying he died of cocaine. That's what it is. Okay, now I want you to see here, look at this picture here. You can see that they have a picture of the guy with the alcohol bottle, because the Tribble, that's the friend of the Len Bias, the Tribble, and he's the one that they're talking about, like, that it's because he's got this connection to this, like, ghetto kid, because really, don't forget, they're black and they're all in the ghetto, and you know that they're all drug addict losers. That's what they sold you, and everybody bought it. And this is what I keep fucking saying. The fact that they fucking were able to sell you that shit was so fucking racist just because they're black and maybe they have some form of a connection to fucking poverty people, then we instantly assume, oh, this kid was so fucking stupid, he signed a big contract, of course he went out and did cocaine and ruined his whole life. Of course, because he's just some fucking stupid black kid from the ghetto. That's what they fucking sold us on. And they're still selling it on it, and still none of you motherfuckers standing up and doing anything to stop this bullshit of what they do to us. Now, Sam, the dude's drunk off his fucking ass. That's why they've got the alcohol bottle, because they're saying that it's cocaine. And I'm saying, well, I don't see the cocaine. I see alcohol. The dude's drunk off his ass. If this is the friend that supposedly got the cocaine and is partying, why is he so drunk and passed out? If he's supposed to be partying with Len Bias and celebrating, then they got cocaine and they're partying, why is he drunk off his ass? He's drunk. He's not high on cocaine. He's drunk. And it's clearly obvious. This is not even up for debate and shit. This is not disputable.
For the next 3 to 4 hours, Bias, Tribble, and teammates Terry Long and David Gregg spent leisure time together. The events of the next few hours, events that Larry Bird, Len's soon-to-be teammate, could only describe as the cruelest thing ever, still haunt the world to this very day. At around 6:15 a.m., while socializing with Terry Long.
Okay. At 6:15 a.m. while socializing with Terry Long. Oh, he's just socializing. Okay, so his friend Tribble's passed out drunk. And we're supposed to believe that Len Bias is just socializing at 6 a.m. in the morning. He's socializing with the other guy at 6 a.m. So if he had been doing cocaine up until the point where he's made it up until that point at 6 o'clock, then why does his heart suddenly burst at that time? It does not make sense. It does. If he's been doing coke, if the coke was going to kill him, it would have killed him like on the first line, which had to have occurred hours prior to this. If the story of what they're telling us is true, that he's partying with Tribble and shit, right? For like those 4 hours. But for some reason, Tribble's totally passed out drunk and unconscious at 6 o'clock. And they're saying that Len is still socializing with the Terry Long at that time. What do you tell me? They're just up doing coke all night. They've never done coke before, but for some reason, he's partying like he's a fucking veteran, like he knows all this shit, right? It's bullshit. And ironically, in this video, this is just a video, so this is nothing. It's not like this is official footage and shit, right? But I'm just saying it's ironic that for some reason they put a shot there, because why is a shot there? They're not saying that they were fucking shooting cocaine and shit. I mean, I don't think that they're saying that that's what was going on. And the chances, if they even said that, it's like, if they said that, it would have had to been to cover up the fact that there was a needle hole in him and shit, right? But, I mean, come on. You're not going to get some kid who just signed the contract and he's going to be like, yeah, shoot some of that cocaine into me. People don't do, they're not stupid like that. People just are not crazy like that. They don't do shit. It's ridiculous, right? And like I said, 6:15 in the morning. That's the setup. The guy needed to wait until the one guy was drunk off his ass and passed out, because they're going to pin the murder on him and shit, right? So you got to make sure he's passed out and out of it so he doesn't know what the fuck's going on. And then that's when you jump on Len and give him the shot, right? You give him the shot. But then you wake the Tribble up, you'll see that Tribble's the one that calls 911. So why is Tribble, the guy that's passed out drunk, why is he the guy that's on the phone? Because the other guy says, they're saying, oh, well, the other guy gave him CPR, right? And it's like, yeah, right. It's just all of it's bullshit. It's bullshit.
Len Bias was struck with a seizure and instantly collapsed. At first, it had appeared as if he had just lost consciousness, but soon after, in a freak occurrence of tragedy, Bias stopped breathing. Long immediately attempted to perform CPR, and when it failed to revive him, Tribble, frightened and presumably high on drugs, placed a 911 call to the Prince George's County Emergency Services.
Okay, so see the long guy is doing the thing, and then the Tribble's presumably high on drugs. He's not high. He's drunk off his ass, is what you're going to hear on this phone call. He's drunk off his ass. He's drunk. Why is this guy making the phone call at all? You know, the guy, so would he really have woken the guy up and been like, dude, wake up, you drunk? And he knows he's drunk. He's been hanging out with them the whole time. He knows he's drunk off his ass. So you're really going to tell me that guy decides to wake him up and get him to call? The reason he calls is because he doesn't want to be the guy on the phone, because he's the guy who killed him, you know? And he's got to make sure that he's over there. He doesn't want nobody touching Linda, however it worked out and shit, right? But his job is like act like you're giving him CPR so you can say that you were trying to revive him when you're actually the guy who killed him, and you're making sure that your voice, you don't want your voice on the fucking phone, you don't want your voice connected to this anything at all. Put Tribble on the phone. Get his ass on the phone and shit. The one guy that should not have been the guy calling, that's the guy calling. And the Tribble doesn't even live there, so he doesn't even actually understand the room number, where the other guy actually lives in the building. He could tell. He could call the police, and so that's another thing too. The guy that's he would have known, give me the phone, let me tell him where we're at. That never happened. He's got Tribble saying, oh, where's Len Bias? He doesn't even know where the fuck they're at actually and shit. That's not his place. Should have been the other guy.
Pleading for medical assistance.
County emergency.
See, what room? See, right there, it's what room? The first thing, he doesn't want to know what fucking room they're at. And he's drunk. Should this have been the guy to call? No, it should have been the other guy. If he passed out and shit, the other guy could have got on the phone, because that's if he knew enough to give a medical procedure, to give him CPR. If he knew enough to give him CPR, he should have known enough that the first thing you do is call 911. If he's passed out and unconscious, first thing you do is get on the phone. Then you can still keep giving him CPR while you're on the phone with the guys and shit, right? But that's not what happened. And it shows that there's something wrong here, and it shows that it's with that guy. Everything here is wrong. Everything here is wrong.
Washington Hall. It's a nurse who's led by us. And he just went to Boston. And he needs some assistance. What are you talking about?
See, the guy, what are you talking about? He's incoherent and blabbering. The guy, what's the first words out of the 9/11 operator's mouth? What are you talking about? What the fuck are you even what? Len Bias, he went to Boston? What are you fucking talking about? Because he is drunk. He's drunk. He's not high. You can see the slurred speech and the tone down. The alcohol is a downer. Cocaine is an upper. That's what I'm saying. That people, people are so dumb that people don't even understand. Cocaine is an upper. That means you talk really fast and you're up and you're awake and you're up and you're partying. Whoop, 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 party, party, party. Alcohol is a downer, and it puts you to sleep and knocks you out unconscious, and then you slur your speech because you're out of it. You're under the influence of alcohol. This guy is under the influence of alcohol. He's not been partying with Len Bias with cocaine for the last 3 or 4 hours, because he would still be awake then and present and alert. And he is not any of that. He's completely drunk off his ass because he was drinking, and he's drinking and getting drunk, and Len Bias is just hanging out. He's not doing cocaine with his friends. This guy obviously is not under the influence of cocaine. He's drunk off his ass. If this guy's not high under the influence of cocaine, then why should we ever assume that Len Bias was being high under the influence of cocaine? Especially at 6 in the morning. Why does it strike him dead at 6 in the morning? Come on. It's ridiculous.
What are you talking about? I'm talking about someone needs Len Bias needs help.
See, people say, what are you talking about? I'm talking about someone needs, Len Bias needs help. It's sad and it's funny. It's funny because it's so sad. It's one of these things that's like, and to think that they sold the public under the idea that this guy's high under the cocaine when they just said they had only been partying for 3 or 4 hours. Partying for 3 or 4 hours on cocaine doesn't knock you out and make you incoherent, a blabbering drunk 4 hours later. It doesn't do that. You know what does that? Alcohol does that. He was drinking, and he's drinking and getting drunk. And where's the alcohol in Len Bias? Is Len Bias drunk? I never heard anybody even mention the fact, and there's no way possible that if Len Bias was there celebrating, this is like clutch. If Len Bias was there in any form of fashion of celebrating that night by using narcotics, if his friend is drinking, there's no way possible that Len Bias doesn't take a drink. Now, yeah, he would take a drink. I'll take a shot and I'll hang out and shit, right? But not cocaine. This is not a cocaine scenario and a situation of what's occurring. And the Tribble, the guy, is definitely not under the influence of cocaine. If he's not showing any influence of being under the influence of cocaine, then cocaine's not present. Because what you actually hear, what you find out, I didn't pull this up in this video, but they found cocaine stashed under the dashboard in like a rental car. And it's like, dude, they planted that there. Because it's like I said, that's like same kind of shit. They're trying to make you think, oh, what were these ghetto black kids who got this cocaine illegally, and now they got this car they're renting, so they stashed it up under they make you think that that's how it would be, like in the movies. That's not how it would be. As a drug user, I want the drugs in my pocket. Because that's like one of the last things is for the cops to search you. That's where for a cop to search you, they really got to go somewhere and shit. I always carry the drug in my pocket because a cop could harass me and shit, but once he gets to that point where he's searching me, that's a different thing. But I'm not gonna it's not gonna be in the car, stashed in the dashboard. That's like the stupid little kid shit that they make you think and stuff. It's just bullshit. It's just bullshit. It's like, how did it get back into the car after the dude's passed out on drugs? How does the cocaine get back into the car when I thought they're supposed to be doing cocaine up all night and shit, right? But for some reason the dude's passed out drunk, and somehow now the cocaine ends up back in the car. Well, how'd the cocaine get back in the car and shit when they're supposed to be partying and shit? It's just bullshit. It's a bullshit fucking story.
Well, it doesn't matter what his name is. What's the problem? It's not breathing right. What's your name? My name is Brian. Brian what? True. True? Yes, sir. What's your phone number, Brian?
See, I'm in Len Bias's room. I don't know what the phone number is. He doesn't know anything. Why is this the guy that's on the phone? When the other guy, who's obviously got some form of medical training because he's given CPR, why isn't that guy on the phone? He's not the one that's drunk out of his mind. He knows some kind of medical procedure. Why didn't he get on the phone? That's his room. That's Len Bias, his teammate. He would know him and shit or whatever. Come on. How does this dude, the drunk, okay, Len Bias passed out. Wake your drunk ass up and call the cops, you stupid motherfucker. That's not how it happens. Come on. It's so fucking fake. The dude's drunk, and as soon as the dude's drunk passed out, the other dude jumps and fucking hits Len Bias with a shot, which causes him to fucking go into seizures, convulsion, and pass out, and he's having a problem. He's dying. He murdered him. And so Tribble wakes up and sees Len's dying and shit, right? And then he says, call the cops. So yeah, he calls the cops, but he doesn't know what the fuck's going on. The other guy's the one in control. The other guy's the one setting this whole up. I mean, he needs to be investigated as a murderer.
Phone number? 1103. 1103? Please come as soon as you can. It's no joke. Okay, Washington Hall, apartment number 1103. Give him a mouth to mouth. You can hear it now.
See what it says? He says they're giving, and it says there, which I don't know. He says there, you know, which I don't know. Is there more than one people there? It's like I don't know exactly what's taking place here. But again, why is this guy the one on the phone? Because they're trying to make it seem, well, I was giving him mouth to mouth. Oh, you couldn't stop for a second, knowing how important that the medical procedure was. If he's trained enough to give him CPR and mouth to mouth, don't you think he would have had enough common sense to know call 911 before you put the stupid drunk? He had enough time to wake the drunk up and get him on the phone. He had enough time to do that, but he didn't have enough time to do that himself. When he's clearly the one that's more awake and rational, he's got some training in medical things. That's his room and shit, but he's gonna wake the drunk up and get his ass on the phone? It's bullshit. And you can, like I said, you can see, this is not a cocaine situation. This is a dude's drunk. And he's not using coke because he's passed out drunk. He's not on coke. So why would we assume that Len Bias is high on cocaine and shit? And if he was doing cocaine after all the time, why did it hit him 4 hours after he started doing it? Why didn't it hit him instantly? It needs to be at that time when the dude's passed out. So then when Len Bias is getting a little bit tired, the guy has to look for the opportunity, and that's his boom. He did it. He hit him. I'm sure he hit him with a fucking shot. That's probably what did it.
At 6:42 a.m., two paramedics arrived, finding Bias on the floor of his room without a t-shirt and no signs of movement. In one last hopeful effort, the medics nervously began working on Bias, placing a pacemaker on his chest. Still no movement. By 6:50 a.m., paramedics transported Bias to Leland Memorial Hospital in Riverdale, Maryland, where emergency medical teams continued their efforts to revive him, but it was too late. The 22-year-old college prodigy never regained consciousness, and on June 19, 1986, at approximately 8:50 a.m., just 2 days after he was selected in the NBA draft by the reigning champion Boston Celtics, Len Bias was officially pronounced dead.
And who stood up for him? Did we all just say, stupid black kid from the ghetto, fucking signs a big deal, and then he goes and fucking throws it all away because he uses cocaine? What a stupid black kid from the ghetto. Is that what we all fucking said? Yep. Is that what the media sold us? Yep. Is that what they're still fucking selling us, that bullshit story today? Yep. And all the stupid motherfuckers, after all this time, you people are still so stupid to believe that shit when you can't see the fucking rise of Nike and what they fucking did and the obstacle. Isn't it clearly obvious that that's an obstacle, that this guy was an obstacle in the path of Nike becoming what they did? And I'm sure if you watch that Nike movie, it's one of these things where just when they're saying, like they're saying the Vicario, I found him, I found the guy. Dude, there's always another guy. This is sports. You think, oh, you found the guy. Oh, yeah. You know what's going to happen now? Another guy's going to come up fucking next year. You know what's going to happen then? Another guy's going to come up fucking next year. There's like in the movie, On Any Given Sunday, there's that line by Lawrence Taylor. And he says, for every Jerry Rice, there's 100 dudes you never even heard of. That's how it goes. For every Jerry Rice, there's 100 other dudes you never even heard of. And you think that they're just going to be like, oh, we found it. It's Michael Jordan. I know it. I can see the gifts and it's him for sure. We know he's going to... No, it's bullshit. First of all, for you to even make that fucking to say that, it's not like it was Shaq, right? Shaq was a dominant force, right? Or like somebody like Wilt Chamberlain and shit, right? Yeah, the motherfucker was going to dominate. There was no stopping that. Okay, now that's an unstoppable force and shit, right? Now with guys like that, same thing with Len Bias. I would look much more, and Hank Gathers too. I would look much more at Len Bias and Hank Gathers with their body physiques and the games that they were playing, and I would have seen it more in both of them than I would have seen it in Jordan, because Jordan was a little bit thinner. And he's got some size to him. He's like 6'5", 6'6", and shit, but I'd rather have a guy 6'8", or a little bit guy that's like Hank Gathers that's a little bit thicker, that's got all that ability but a little bit thicker, who's a little bit stronger, which is going to allow him to take the beatings of what Jordan's not going to be able to take. And like they said, he's going to the Celtics. The Celtics were the defending champions. So you're talking about the Celtics who are the they just won the championship. Next year they get Len Bias? Come on. And then he signs to Reebok. And they murdered his ass because of what you can see now in our modern world of what Nike had a plan of what they were going to do with fucking Jordan. And they did it. And they were going to murder any fucking obstacle that was going to stop them from being out of this world domination of what they're doing. They would murder any motherfucker who got in their path, and of which we see is what happened to Len Bias and Hank Gathers. And to tell you stupid motherfuckers like people like over at Sports Card Radio with your thumbs up your asses with your low grade fucking reporting on worthless fucking sports card, and tell you dumb stupid motherfuckers, pull your fucking head out of your ass and understand the world we live in and the power in which you have to influence this fucking world, until you have some balls to step up and get into the world and make a change. Then this shit is going to continue happening over and over and over again, because all we got is weak ass losers out here with a voice to fucking change the world like Sports Card Radio, fucking bitch ass morons.